Hey, now this week we're going to talk about transition between manager and IC role. And I got this question from Sean, and he's facing that challenge. And what he's saying is basically, would it be possible to do a video about transitioning type of resume, moving from a pure IC role into leadership, mentorship, coaching role, developing more soft skills than hard skills? Now, a full stop here, and to preface, it's not really about the resume. You can put a lot of things on your resume, but it's not kind of like a hack. You can just update your resume and you're going to get it. You kind of need to collect enough evidence, which the following statements are actually kind of highlighting too. I know you said the resume is not about what you've done in the past. It should point where you want to be. To an extent, so this is a quick answer to nip it in the bud, is that what I mean by that is that you highlight the things you actually done in the past which are relevant for your future role. So if you want to get to a manager position, you need to start pulling out those things which would highlight, which we can discuss in a second. You don't just make stuff up, basically. That's just to nip it in the bud if anyone's confused about that. Now there's a chicken and egg problem. If I'm already hit the ceiling as an IC, I don't have as much leadership management experience. I've mentored and coached younger designers, but not at the level where they report directly to me on the org chart. And then I apply for managing role. I don't have enough experience in that area. I got rejected. I've also started jobs as a team of one where I was promised to build my own team, but that never came. Long story short, sounds like a lot of struggle which a lot of other people are gonna be facing, especially if you're, let's say, you just became a more senior person and you're looking at how to get into that management role. And as I go, and because one video is not enough to cover everything at length, this is, it could be courses basically. Do let me know your comments down below. I'm happy to revisit, make a follow-up, and so forth. And so to spark those circuits and give you a few ideas immediately, I'm going to walk you through my journey into management and leadership positions in design, which is very similar to what everyone else actually goes through. So around 2014, I think, around 8-9 years ago, almost a decade, I joined this firm as a senior UX designer. There was one designer to begin with, I hired another designer, and then naturally assumed the role of a team manager. And that was kind of like always the idea that I would be an engagement point and try to slowly develop my management skills. I was very bad at it. I had a lot of clashes, a lot of, miscommunications, things of that nature, but it gave me so many lessons to what to do next. And so I kind of went bit by bit, step by step. I, switched different roles, joined different firms, had more people to manage, and I slowly developed my skills so that I can work with others and deliver with other people. But that ultimately how it usually starts. You need to set that you want to do this, of course, and you need to actually then set up your environment for you to develop in it, but you never kind of choose that, okay, now I'm gonna be a manager, because it does take some time to roll off. And it doesn't matter what anyone says, you don't just click the fingers and you become a manager overnight. You kind of have to develop your people skills, your strategic skills, planning skills, and everything in between, which I'm gonna cover in a second. And so the first thing what people usually get wrong, get bogged down on what they know and what makes them successful today. And I think Sean might have done that in the past too if he feels like he reached that ceiling of IC roles. It could be that he basically was successful being IC and therefore people kept him doing IC work. And if, let's say, he's part of a bigger organization, or even if he's joined a new organization, if he's really good at what he does, he's gonna be expected to do that, because promoting someone, creating opportunities for someone, or establishing these structures or design org takes a lot of efforts and a lot of energy, and generally businesses don't want to do extra stuff ultimately or over optimize. That's something like, it's almost like a clarity point here where you need to reflect. Are you really good at IC work? Or are you able to now kind of sacrifice a bit of that and develop new skills as you go, and maybe increase the demand for the actual additional source who would do that IC work? This is a hard fact, but a fact. So you kind of need to think about that. Is what I'm doing today actually contributing to your long-term strategy to become a manager? Now, if you make the decision that, yes, I want to do that, and I know that I'm going to sacrifice some of those things I'm going to do today, and I know that, let's say, what got me here is not going to get me there because it's going to be very different, then I can kind of work with it and it's going to snowball. And what's worth it to look at immediately, what I recommend people who want to become managers, is to look at what's required of a manager, because there is a lot of common misconceptions. If you look at something like a good resource of Design Team Levels framework by Peter Merholz, it has been go-to so many other careers frameworks. I used it in the past to create new frameworks and so forth. It's really good starting point at the minimum. But basically, it outlines exactly how you go through these steps. As you can see, you would start as a contributor level and you would go through associate, let's say key or midweight, you would go to senior. And let's presume for a second that Sean is really at the senior level. This is where the fork would happen, where you would become a driver basically as a lead or staff designer, or you would go and manage other people. It's not that static. It's never kind of like, you're given a golden ticket again. You need to develop yourself and you need to kind of smoothly transition so it supports the objectives from the business. It's never in isolation. And for a second, if Sean feels like he's a principal or a lead somewhere here where he capped that IC role, and by the way, it's nothing wrong to be IC for as much as you want to, because we need way more ICs than managers anyways. But Sean then would need to reflect exactly where he's at, what organization it is. Can he laterally move to director, senior director, or some sort of senior manager of a team, or head off? Could be. Maybe he needs to change the environment, and maybe he needs to step back and lower the expectation bar and join a different organization where he would basically restart as a manager. Because it doesn't really matter at what point you are in your career. Maybe that's something which could actually align well. However, if you want to make that lateral transition outright, chances are you're not going to be as good as someone who grew from manager to, let's say, senior manager or director, or however you want to skin it. Again, different organizations are going to skin it differently, but you get my point. And let's see, Sean is okay with that and he went for manager, or you're a new manager. A lot of these are, for example, the delivery of the things, the core, the problem solving, the scoping, the planning, the design operations, the presentation skills, communication skills, influence, leadership, things of that nature. People management really is just one aspect of it. Of course, all the other ones overlap, but people get bogged down on coaching and people, delivering through others ultimately, or managing other people, or, like setting up the teams and things of that nature. That's just one aspect of that. The invisible part of that iceberg, that you're going to need to do more strategic and organizational focused work. It's going to be partnerships creations. It's going to be business development within the organization. It's going to be evangelism. It's going to be influence again on the, executive and senior leadership. It's going to be partnerships again, which is probably the most important bit, with other leaders within a business, from product engineering side, other design leaders, you name it. Like coaching is one aspect of that, and super important, obviously. You need to be able to work with people. You need to be able to support them so we can actually develop as much as you develop. The job ads could also give you a lot of intel of what, we're gonna probably gloss over these things like the strategic planning, budgeting, hiring, developing design operations elements to optimize how design is done, design maturity improvements, working with other leaders, partnerships, and so forth, and kind of bridging the gap, empathy for your colleagues, and strategy vision setting for different, let's say, portfolios of a product. So again, you must reflect. You could look at the ads, you could look what they need. Let's say if you apply for just product design versus user research or UX generalist roles or service design, they're going to be quite different. They're going to tell you a bit of like a higher scope of what usually the hiring managers look for. So you, again, already are doing a lot of these things. Even if you are, let's say, a senior designer, you should be looking of how to do more of these things so you can demonstrate them and capture them. It should be always on your mind. Again, what got you here is not going to get you there. So start doing extra stuff, or start carving out time and saying my 20 or 30 or 40% of my time altogether is going to be focused on these new things as appropriate. Obviously, you need to juggle the things. You might need to have a chat with your manager or whoever you're reporting to and saying, hey, I want to develop in this. Create that shared understanding and appreciation and support line so that you can develop there. And let's say Sean is here right now, right? Like he's in that position and he wants to get to that position where he's, I guess, a design leader for bigger teams, or maybe wants to drive, highly efficient design teams, effective design teams, which has been my passion and goal. That's how I develop, let's say. He's gonna need to go through a lot of trials and tribulations until he gets there, because to get to that point, again, it doesn't happen overnight. He's probably, and he's aware of that he's gonna need to maybe start as a team of one, but again, it's gonna have its own challenges. I would recommend Sean to probably look for smaller existing design capabilities where he can actually support, so that transition is not gonna be as, big. And then from there, you could kind of go into bigger pastures and kind of develop yourself as a more senior design manager, or whatever you wanna skin that role. When I started as a manager, I took on and kind of reflected that, okay, maybe right now I'm not there, and maybe I have one direct report or no direct reports. That's totally fine. But I'm gonna start demonstrating influencing people who might not directly report to me, like Sean did. He just mentioned that he had no organization line, but that doesn't matter. Like, your thought leadership is coaching. You can influence them. You can have one-to-ones, coffee chats. You could offer mentoring them. You could offer to give them advice and form these little communities, for example. You can be a leader and you can be a manager through proxies. Do so with your own time and develop yourself. But you need to be ingenious of how you do that. Again, reflect what you need to demonstrate and then figure out, set a plan of how you're gonna do it within your existing situation and organization. So you start demonstrating those things in each role or each organization you go through. And going back to the original question from Sean, what do I put into a resume? In each of those, you're gonna extract and highlight just the ones which are relevant to the management position, because your IC stuff should be covered in a portfolio anyways. You can also have a skills outline, extract those from each and everything and push it up as one of the points which sells you as a manager, as a strategist, as someone who's actually there to deliver for others and not an IC role. Again, it's going to take time, and it should take time. You don't want to become a leader, or you don't want leaders or managers who are not experienced enough or not seasoned enough. Again, I made a lot of mistakes in the past myself, and I was a terrible manager. And I remember each incident. Again, you don't want to learn at someone else's expense, but you also need to be very self-aware and reflect exactly where that's happening, and so that you can correct course and set yourself up for success in a long term. Again, think long term. If you know you want to get there, there's always a way. And each decision you make and each new role you take, or you're looking for a job, has to contribute to that. Otherwise, you're just gonna stay where you're at doing that same thing. And if you're really good at that same thing again, nobody's gonna promote you, or nobody's gonna tell you that, hey, maybe you could help out on something else. That's just how things sadly work. And there's, of course, a ton more to add to this. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'm happy to do a follow-up, dig deeper. So if you like this video, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't done so. And on that note, I'll see you next time.